Attention, armchair quarterbacks and shower thought GMs. It's time for this week's episode of SportsBall with Mike Maharrey and Alan Mosley.
Insert witty banter here.
I don't feel witty today, do you?
I think we got all wittied out last night on my show.
Yeah.
That was it, folks. You should have tuned in.
You still can.
That is technically true. And technically true is the best kind of true.
That's the only kind of true.
Why are you so cloudy? You said you was clouding up. I didn't realize you meant inside your home.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know. Did I touch my lens? I don't know.
I don't know. Well, it might just be me. I think I'm going blind, to be honest with you.
No, it's definitely cloudy.
Okay. Guys, welcome back for another episode of SportsBall. I am your host, Alan Mosley, joined as always by my co-host and someone who's having some sort of strange weather pattern in Jacksonville. It's Mike Maharrey. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good. I think maybe I've got slow internet and it may be pixelating. I think that might be the problem. Anyway, yeah, I'm okay. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm okay. I gotta say, I was talking to a couple of our mutual friends about some SportsBall related stuff before we went on.
Oh, yeah?
And while I am completely confident that football will happen, I'm starting to be a little bit weary about exactly what we're going to get when I say football.
Yeah. You remember replacement players?
I do remember. I remember replacement players, but once we got replacement refs, the replacement players looked like Hall of Famers.
That's true.
Yeah.
Replacement refs, that was an adventure in officiating. Of course, it didn't get any better with the regular officials back. So.
Oh, yeah, that's the thing, is that I remember all the comments from people that were saying, well, now that you see how bad the replacement refs are, you have a new appreciation for the regular refs. And my answer always was, no, I don't.
Yeah,
What are you talking about? I will never until the end of my days. I mean, it's like it's burnt into my memory. It's one of my favorite football moments now. Seahawks Packers, the last play of the game being the Hail Mary, where one referee standing right on top of it was waving incomplete, and another referee standing right on top of it was signaling touchdown.
Touchdown. Yes.
And then they look at each other like, have we met? My name's Alan.
How you doing?
Oh man.
Football. But yeah, the whole Corona thing with sports is just it's wearisome, because I was listening to a podcast today and they were talking about college football and now you're getting different scenarios for the different conferences. The Big 12 is going to have, I think, one non-conference opponent. SEC is going all conference opponents, and it's going to be really weird when you get down, if they even have a bowl series. How do you really determine when nobody's played anybody outside of the conference? It's just going to basically be, I guess, the eye test.
Yeah. Well, I mean, of course, you know me. I would say that the greatest team ever is the University of Tennessee Volunteers. They're so great. They're so great, Mike Maharrey, that this year, instead of playing Charlotte and Wagner, they're going to play Alabama and LSU.
Isn't that great?
That's all right.
Yeah.
I mean, as downtrodden as you can be about that, you can always take heart in, well, if we win, we deserve the national championship. That's for sure.
There you go.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
Now, you're the hockey expert on this program, and you're going to give us some current hockey playoff format news. And this has obviously been kind of a weird format, because they sort of had like the round robin seeded thing, and now we're going to go into the quote unquote regular playoffs. Explain for viewers at home how the Bruins can be both the best team in hockey and not even a top 2 seed.
Well, I never said that they were the best team in hockey.
Well, they had the best record pre.
Yeah, they did, and so they're doing this round robin thing, and they've lost both of their round robin games.
Yeah.
But that's the way it goes. You gotta prove it on the ice. And
the President's Trophy is for the regular season champ, right?
That is correct. The team with the most.
Are they
points.
Still getting that, or is that just we're not doing that this year?
I doubt that they'll do that, since they never did finish the regular season.
I mean, I don't know. I guess, I have no dog in the fight, but I guess if I were a Bruins fan, I'd be a little bit raw. You're having a good year. There's this huge shakeup that obviously affects everyone in some ways you can say, well, it's not that it's unfair in the sense that it affects everyone equally. Everyone has a shutdown. Everyone has to take some months off. But
right?
with that said, you're in the pole position for the President's Trophy, and now you're fighting for your playoff life. How did?
Well, they're not really fighting for their playoff life. They might be the 4 seed.
That,
So,
that
you
seems a
know,
lot lower than first seed.
yeah, but honestly, when you look at things historically, the 1 seeds have not done well. I mean, last year the 1 seeds were all eliminated like in the first round. So being a 1 seed doesn't necessarily guarantee anything, and it's really interesting. We talked about last week my projections, and I said I thought the teams with the most talent, the teams that I took the bold picks, and I picked
Hmm.
all of the favorites, and it really hasn't played out that way at all. And in fact, we have a number of the lower seeded teams that are on the verge of clinching playoff berths. Now, that would make me a little salty if I was a fan of, say, the Pittsburgh Penguins, who, for all intents and purposes, were pretty much locked into the playoffs. They may not even get into the actual playoff rounds because they're one game away from being knocked out by Montreal. So,
Yeah.
you got to put it together on the ice, and it's when you start playing a series of straight games, it's tough. It's why it's a hard trophy to win.
I understand that, and and obviously any sport that has series of games is a little bit different strategic team build, personnel decisions than you would have for single games like in football.
Right.
Um, but with that said, though, I don't know. I guess I sympathize with a team that, like the Bruins, who was on pace to be in a better position than they ultimately wound up with. I guess I'm an old school homer that I know the top seeds haven't had amazing success recently, but I'd want to look at you look at baseball, basketball, and hockey, and you look over a course of 40 years. I'm pretty sure the top seeds or teams with home field / home ice advantage probably are winning more than they're losing.
Right.
Um, and so I don't know. And again, the President's Trophy thing, I feel like they ought to still do it.
Well, and maybe they will. I honestly don't know. I haven't heard one way or the other. I mean, I know they're doing the other regular season trophies. They're doing the Vesna and the Masterson and the Norris Trophy and all those. So, um, you know, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to do that or not, if it even makes sense to do it. I know the President's Trophy wasn't so great for the Lightning last year, so maybe they don't want it.
I wasn't going to bring that up to save the Tampa Bay superfan,
Yeah.
but
Well, and I there's a part of me that wants to brag because the Lightning have looked really good in their first two round robin games. They knocked off the Capitals, who they've always had trouble with in the first game, and then they beat Boston yesterday. And I'm thinking, oh, this is great, but it doesn't mean anything when they get into the actual series. And that's the interesting thing about these round robins. I mean, they kind of matter, but they don't really matter. You're not going to get eliminated from the playoffs. So I wonder if a team like Boston, maybe they're just not really amped up for it yet. I don't know. It's hard to say. Now the Lightning Washington game, that was a physical game, and both teams were obviously trying to make a point. It's a fun hockey game to watch. But I mentioned the teams that are up that I wouldn't have expected. I already mentioned the Canadians being up on the Pens. How about the Phoenix Coyotes up 2-1 on the Predators? And the Predators haven't looked good. They didn't even really look good in the game that they won.
they didn't look well. I heard a lot of Nashville chatter that they didn't look good in the game that they won, but I mean, in they really should have won the first game. The problem is that you have a guy like Pekka Rinne. Of course, he's still playing pretty amazing in the goal for an 89-year-old guy. But he has pretty much the same problem he's had for the majority of his tenure with the Predators, which is sometimes the support is slim.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
and they should have a good back end. Of course, you look at who's carrying Montreal, Shea Weber.
yeah,
That trade doesn't look so good at this point.
no, it doesn't.
Subban is in New Jersey now, I think.
Yeah, historically, one of the Predators' biggest issues, and we've talked about this across different sports, is that sometimes you hear people talk about small market teams, And generally speaking, when you hear that, you're thinking, oh, it's a smaller area, so they don't
Right.
have as big a ratings based largely on population. Like it's not, you're not saying inherently they're a crappy team. You're
Right.
saying they're in a smaller market. But
Right.
smaller market teams do tend to fall into some traps, being that sometimes they're not willing to pay big in free agency for the
Mhm.
biggest guys available. Sometimes they're not willing to re-sign their own homegrown talent when they're in a contract year
Right.
because a major program will come along, a bigger market team will come along and say, well, we'll beat whatever offer Nashville's willing to give. And
Right.
I mean, and it's hard to blame the player, obviously, because you may love playing in Nashville and all that, but if a team comes along and wants to pay you $20 million more, it's 20 million reasons to find a new address.
Right.
But with that said, it's tough, right? It's tough for a small market team to break through.
Sure.
But Nashville's had some success in the last few years. They went to a Stanley Cup not that
Yeah.
long ago. And more years than not, they've been a competitive team, even
Mhm.
during the seasons when they were having a hard time breaking through that first round of
Right.
the playoffs till they finally did, of course. And since then they've had more success. But it's hard to see a team like the Predators either sustaining that level of success or ever breaking through. And this applies to a lot of other programs in the NHL
Yeah.
until you're willing to go for broke on a generation of your talent, right?
Right. And I think, hockey's a lot like other sports where defense, I think, is the foundation. You look at a team like Toronto. Now, Toronto, they're tied 1-1 with Columbus, but uh, their biggest weakness, and it has been for the last couple of years, they're stacked on the on the offensive side. They're weak on the back end, and you just can't win playoff hockey if you don't have a strong defense. I mean that to some degree hurt Tampa Bay. Not last year Hedman was hurt, who's arguably one of the best defensemen in the NHL, and
Mm-hmm.
his absence was clearly a hindrance. So when you don't have that back end, and I think that's the problem that Nashville has this year. They're just not able to defend like they need to when you get to that playoff level hockey. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. I mean, they're not out of it yet, but they don't look good. And then the other team that's up that is very surprising is Chicago Blackhawks, who, I mean, really, they were kind of a hot mess, especially early in the year, and they've kind of pulled it together, and they're up 2-1 over Edmonton. And of course, Edmonton's got they had the injury to their captain in the first game when he kind of a nasty hit. I didn't think it was a nasty hit, but the Edmonton coach definitely thought it was a nasty hit. But he went into the boards. I think he broke his ankle. And then Patrick Laine, who's their big scorer, he's also out injured. So that's hurting them. But I still wouldn't expect Chicago to be up. But here we are.
We'll take a quick look in the chat before we go to our next segment. Andrew Avery says, "Howdy, friends and neighbors." Howdy, Andrew. That's not a pun. I guess he only does that for me. Doesn't do that. Lamont Connor is here, who says, "Hey, Mike, it's Lamont. Good to see you, man."
I think Lamont, if I'm not mistaken, we worked together at Comair years and years ago. So hey to Lamont, that's pretty cool.
TJ Bolton says, "Hockey is a poor man's sport." Now look,
What?
I'm not really a big fan of hockey, but that's just objectively not true.
That's not
So
true.
so basketball and soccer are poor man's sports.
Yeah.
You need a ball in a net/hoop.
We can go out in my garage and I'll show you how not a poor man's sport hockey is.
Yeah, hockey is actually expensive to play, and so is football. I mean, if you're going to play the sport the way it's designed to be played, it's actually a lot of money, and you actually need a bunch of people.
Yeah, I know, that's true.
You need two people in a ball to play some other games.
That's true.
Jonathan Carranza writes, when is there going to be a national pedophile hunting? I guess when it the market doth provide.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
That's a new use for Pedophile Island.
Yeah. So speaking of the market providing, so sports are back on the menu. Baseball's restarted. Hockey's restarted.
Mm-hmm.
NBA's restarted.
Right.
And the NBA, of course, is in the now famous bubble.
Right.
And I mean, whatever. Good on them. Things seem to be going pretty well so far. However, things aren't going completely well. Let's talk a little bit about ratings. Now, before we talk about anything, one would think that after being sports starved for months, would expect the ratings to probably be pretty good.
Yeah.
People want sports, right?
I mean, for me, I sat and watched baseball for the first time in like 15 years in that first week that it was on.
Exactly so. But let's take a look at the NBA ratings. So this is
Okay.
from The Athletic. The NBA returns big games, but not so large ratings.
Yikes.
So I'm gonna read a little bit of the data here from you. Now this is actually going back a ways and coming forward.
Okay.
Some of the initial games, Houston Rockets win over Milwaukee Bucks averaged 2.44 million viewers and a 1.5 rating. That's the highest of any non-Los Angeles Lakers or Christmas Day game of the season. So okay, you restart the season, big success.
Right.
ESPN had 1.1 and 1.8 million for the Lakers Raptors Saturday night, and 1.72 million for Rockets Mavericks Friday night. Both are above the network's pre-hiatus average of just under 1.5 million. But here's the problem. So not only have games after the opening weekend tanked by something along the lines of about 30%, the problem with the NBA is that this isn't a recent phenomenon. They've been on the decline for some time.
Yeah.
So the NBA had nosedived, its national television viewership had nosedived 12% since the end of the 2018-2019 season. Now that 12% down since that season is on the heels of a 16% increase from the season, or 16% decrease from the season. ABC is down 16%. TNT, which is a big NBA network, is down 13%. ESPN is down 10%. That's not exactly what you expect to hear from you would expect a fan base that's really jonesing for something to watch on TV other than reruns on Netflix.
Yeah. So, what is your theory?
So I think it's a couple of things. One, and specifically, we're going to kind of stick to the NBA for the sake of this segment. For one, the NBA, this isn't a recent phenomenon. This isn't a recent phenomenon for the NBA. The NBA has sort of been in decline the last few years.
Right.
In some ways, I think the NBA is a little bit more prone to live and die on its star power than other leagues are. I think when you think of really the Michael Jordan era on, it became the era of basketball as a sport, really promoting individual talents above the team talent.
Right.
And making superstars out of individual players. And in some ways that can be cyclical because, I mean, if you have a LeBron James come along and he's young and he's exciting, but then he gets older and you don't have an heir apparent, then I think it can be natural for people to tune out a little bit.
Right.
You look at golf, Tiger Woods is the hottest thing on the market, and golf becomes more popularized among the mainstream.
Right.
You can actually go to ESPN right this second. They're playing the PGA Championships, and all the coverage on the front page is about Tiger Woods, even though Tiger Woods is totally out of contention in the tournament. Right. He's 6 shots back on day one. It's the only thing they're covering is Tiger Woods. So they're obviously desperate for star talent to sort of bring it to the forefront. But I got to say, there's probably another big issue that's the elephant in the room. I think when people want to watch sports, they don't want to watch politics.
There is that.
And the NBA in particular deciding to do the bubble thing, to come back from hiatus, and to particularly allow, and if not, would you go so far as to say encourage more political activism?
Oh, I would say so. I mean, and it's not just the NBA. I mean, we're having this in hockey as well, which is, really bizarre. The hockey has tended to stay away from that kind of thing. And let's be honest, hockey's pretty much a, Canadian and Northeast dominated sport. It's not exactly the most popular sport in the world when it comes to African Americans. But we've seen it in there too, as well. So, I mean, this is not just it's across the board. And I think people are a little weary of it, even if you agree with the particular political positions.
Yeah.
I think at some point you're just like, Jesus, can we just have a game, and not talk about this?
I want to share a quick anecdote before you hit someone in the head with something.
Yes.
I'm watching The Last Dance,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
the documentary about Jordan and the Bulls, and I'm about halfway through the documentary, and it's talking about a particular time when Jordan took some heat, particularly from the black community, because there was this gentleman named Gant who was running for Senate in North Carolina, and he did not publicly endorse Gant, and Gant ends up losing to the incumbent, in a hotly contested
I think
race.
it was Jesse Helms.
And, yeah. And a lot of people gave Jordan a lot of flack for not endorsing Gant. And Jordan said, he infamously said, Republicans buy sneakers too.
That's what he said.
That's infamously what he said. Now he goes on record in The Last Dance saying that's something I said off the cuff as, bus ride talk. I didn't realize it was going to become a thing. But he also backed that up with, but I didn't see myself as a political activist. I saw myself as a basketball player.
Right.
And it's like, well, God forbid, right? God forbid the professional basketball player be a professional basketball player first.
Right.
And Jordan, I guess he feels the need to explain himself because so many people in the mainstream criticize him for it.
Yeah.
And his answer was, like, I feel like I wouldn't have any voice. I wouldn't make any money. I wouldn't have any endorsements if I wasn't the best basketball player. And to be the best basketball player, you have to be focused on being the best basketball player, not being a political activist.
Right.
I think that that's completely fair. And I think it goes also to what you were saying, which is if you're going to make a political statement at a sporting event, we live in a very binary black, white, left, right world. If you make statement A, then all the statement B people automatically hate you. Some of the statement A people will hate you because you didn't go far enough.
Right.
And whereas if you make no statement at all, then at the most, the focus stays on the game and people can enjoy you as a talent. And at the least, you can just fly under the radar and let it pass by. I just don't see any way that you are benefiting on net by making political statements, at least during your playing days and career.
Yeah. And, sports has always kind of been spun as, and I think perceived as, a unifying kind of thing. We can come together around our team. We can unite Tampa Bay with the Buccaneers, as bad as the Buccaneers are. There is that factor of that, we may disagree on all of this politics stuff, but we can all get behind our team. And that is, now we can't even do that. Now our team has to be politicized too. And like you said, it ends up alienating, virtually everybody, because everybody has to have an opinion on the political aspect of it. And it just makes it where sports isn't fun. We want an escape. We want a way to have fun. And that was one of the things that was, to me, during the coronavirus lockdowns, one of the things I kept thinking, I really would love to have sports for something to have this sense of normalcy. And then for it to be invaded with the not normal, and I think maybe there's even beyond that, there's the factors. Baseball, it's weird to see guys playing baseball in masks. It's just weird.
Yeah.
Seeing sports with no fans is just weird. Playing NHL playoffs in freaking August is weird. NBA playoffs in August is weird. It's all out of place. And I think some people are kind of like curious, and they look down and they're like, yeah, I've lived without it this long. Yeah. I got other things to do.
Yeah.
So
I understand. Well, on that note, I think it's time for a puck to the head.
It is time for a puck to the head. And you know who we're going to shoot a puck to the head at today? A hockey player.
Ooh.
Yeah. And this is actually a little bit old news, but I just found out about it because, obviously hockey's been off the table for a while. But Jeremy Roenick, who is a pretty prominent NHL player, had a long career with the Blackhawks, and then played, maybe the Stars, played for a couple other teams in the end, I believe. But regardless, went on after his playing days to be one of the desk folks on in BC doing hockey coverage. And, I'll give you a hint for your broadcast career, Alan. Mm-hmm. You don't want to make lewd comments about your co-host. It's just not a good idea. Yeah.
Dang it.
Yeah. But Jeremy didn't think about this, and he went on a pretty well-known hockey podcast called Spit and Chicklets. And made some comments about his co-host, my brain just went dead, Catherine Tappan. And apparently she and his wife are good friends, and they all went on vacation to Portugal. And to make a long story short, he made some insinuations about a three-way. If you don't know what a three-way is, just Google it. But so he got suspended and just wasn't good form. But the story doesn't end there.
Because why would it?
Why would it? Jeremy's decided that he's going to sue NBC for wrongful termination, and his reasoning is that he's being held to a different standard than some of the homosexual folks who are also doing commentary for NBC. In particular, Johnny Weir, who is paired up with Tara Lipinski, who's a former figure skater and have done figure skating coverage and pretty prominent on their Winter Olympic coverage. And if you've ever seen, he wears these bizarre hats and he is what I guess people would call flaming, and makes no secret of it, and which, whatever. But apparently he made some comments, and colorful commentary is how Roenick termed it in his lawsuit. And Roenick claims that when he talked to Sam Flood, who's an NBC executive, about it, Weir had made some comments, quote, regarding the body parts of ice skaters. Roenick said that in the lawsuit, Flood told him, quote, Weir is gay and he can say whatever. And then there's also an incident where the duo joined actress Elizabeth Banks and commented on Brady Tennell's 1988 Olympic bronze medal winning performance using vulgar language and insinuating some sexual affair. So, in a sane world, Roenick might have a case, but we don't live in a sane world. So instead, you just get a puck to the head, Jeremy.
Bold strategy, Cotton. We'll see how it plays out.
Yes, exactly. But remember, Alan, do not make lewd comments about me, even on other podcasts, because it will come back to haunt you, and you might find yourself fired from SportsBall.
I know. If I get suspended from SportsBall, it's going to be SportsBall with Mike.
With Mike, which won't be very interesting.
I'll tell you who hasn't been very interesting the last week or so.
Who's that?
It's our LP team of the week.
Oh, well, who is that?
Our LP team of the week is the Tampa Bay Rays. Oh no!
You mean the team that I said was going to win the World Series? The
team that you said was going to win the World Series. By the way, this is the best graphic we've ever had on the show. The water's too cold. His flappy parts don't feel very flappy at all. The Tampa Bay Rays were off to a pretty hot start when you made your bold prediction that they would win the World Series. They were 4-1 to start the season?
4-1 they started the season, yes indeed.
So since that time,
oh, yikes.
So it all started when they went to Baltimore. I mean, it kind of started halfway through the Braves series, but the Baltimore series is kind of what sort of did them in for their Mike Maharrey viewership, from what I heard through the grapevine.
Yeah, Baltimore's not a good baseball team.
No, they're not, but they put up 16 runs on the Rays.
Yes, they did. And it's all the Rays aren't doing. I mean, even the things that the Rays normally do well, they're not doing well. I mean, usually they've always had trouble with hitting. It's that small market team that you were talking about earlier, that they generally can't hold on to the big money players. They have trouble generating offense at times, but their bread and butter has been their pitching, particularly their bullpen and their fielding. And even that's been abysmal in this run. And it hasn't gotten any better since then. They did win one against Boston, but then they lost yesterday 5-0. So,
yeah. Another couple of quick shout outs in our chat. TJ Bolton said, what's weird is the fake clapping, talking about the non-fan games. So piping in the fake crowd noise and the cardboard cutouts, I give those 0 out of 10.
Yeah, some are better than others. Like watching some of the hockey broadcasts. A few of them have been the low murmur in the background is fine, but like when they hit the button too late on the big play, get the big hit and like like 3 seconds
Mhm.
later, there's this cheer that's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so they
well,
should cut
sound
that.
travels slower than light, so
Well,
that's
that's true.
yeah.
That explains it.
So much slower, in fact, or
Yes.
we're speeding up. It's one way or the other. Jonathan Carranza says, you know what? This show needs a drinking game. You know what? Every show I'm associated with needs it. It's too. I don't know if you knew this. We have an It's Too Late drinking game.
I heard that
Yeah.
yesterday.
So we do need a sports ball drinking game. Jonathan, you're in charge of coming up with the rules for that.
Right.
But we can't drink right now because we have to get our solemn faces on.
Oh, okay.
It's time for In Memoriam. We'll remember a player, a team, a coach, whoever, whose sporting life was cut tragically short. Mike Maharrey, who are you remembering this week?
Well, I'm going to be remembering today the New York Rangers swept out of the NHL playoffs in 3 games. First team eliminated. I guess the good news is they get to leave the coronavirus bubble. But and I will sadly remind folks that that was the one upset that I picked. I thought the Rangers would win.
I can't wait for your version of the sunken cost money pit.
Yes. The way that works is whatever I pick, you bet the opposite. But yeah, the Rangers had a decent year. They made a good run. They're a young team. They're rebuilding. And we can also probably do a in memoriam for their goalie, Henrik Lundqvist, who will likely retire with the season being over. But good spy, Rangers.
I'm remembering the football program of the Yukon Huskies.
Ooh.
Yukon has become the first FBS team to officially cancel, not move, not change the schedule of, to cancel football season. Mike, I have to ask you, what are we going to do without a team who has won 3 games since October 28th, 2017?
There are a lot of red L's on that graphic.
If you look really closely, I know the folks at home, it might be small text. Not only are there a lot of red L's, but most of those are not close.
No.
So in 2018, they lost to UMass, but it was only a 5-point game. They did only lose by 8 to South Florida, who was ranked at the time. I don't know anybody who would be a fan of that team. But you look at some of these other games, 42-point loss to Cincinnati, 40-point loss to Memphis, 40-point loss to UCF, almost a 60-point loss to Boise State, 30-point loss to Syracuse. By the way, some of these teams that are losing by 30 and 42 are themselves terrible teams.
Yes.
30-point loss to Tulsa.
Oh.
12-point loss to SMU, which was actually one of the bottom 10 worst teams, and they lost to them by 2 touchdowns. 50-point loss to Temple.
The Mighty Owls.
They did beat Wagner and UMass in the following season, so congratulations on eking out a field goal over a lower division squad. Yikes. What else can you say? So, I guess what I'm saying is they could be getting an in memoriam for more reason than just canceling their football season.
They could also be the LP team of the last 3 years.
They really could. All I can say to give any heart for the people at UConn is, I guess, wait for basketball season.
Yeah, if there is one.
Don't start.
I'm sorry.
Don't start.
I'm so negative.
You are. I swear.
Debbie Downer.
Do you have a final thought?
Do I have a final thought? I'm glad hockey's back. That's my final thought. It makes me happy. Even though it's weird and being played in empty arenas, I'm glad it's back. And actually, the hockey has been pretty decent, surprisingly so, in a lot of these games.
This is the kind of question I should look up myself instead of asking you live on air. So how long will we have hockey? Like, how long will the playoffs through the Stanley Cup take?
Gosh, I think it goes through like October, maybe.
Okay.
Early October.
So we'll theoretically be like a month or 2 into football season when they're finishing Stanley Cup. Okay. If everything goes well.
Right.
Okay. Well, good. Well, in that case, we will be bringing back the sunken cost money pit. For folks at home that are new to the show, the sunken cost money pit is our article that we do weekly of our gambling picks. Now we don't recommend anybody actually gambles. That's actually retarded. But if you are gonna gamble, you can read the Sunken Cost Money Pit.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that means that I need to keep the website up.
Well, I mean, we can post it elsewhere.
That's true.
By we can, I mean we will, because the website won't be kept.
No, because I let the domain lapse.
Yeah, that's okay. We're gonna be debuting a new site soon.
Good for us.
We're still like a month away from having to worry about that anyway, and that's assuming that football starts on time and all that good stuff. I'll give you really quickly my final thought. So along with UConn, Division III has decided that there'll be no championships for fall sports this year, including football. So they are going to play the season, but they're not going to have any postseason play. So if you but that doesn't include conferences. Mm-hmm. So you can play in your conference, and then you can have a conference championship game, and then you're done. I have to say,
hang the banner, baby.
Hang the banner. And part of me actually wishes that Division I would do this just for this season, so that way Boise State can go ahead and hang the banner.
Yeah, they could be like UCF and actually make license plates when they didn't win a championship.
Don't start. I mean, I'm all, I'll join your bandwagon to make fun of UCF, but my Boise State Broncos, I actually legitimately think were the best team in football a year. And I mean, in my defense, when Boise State had their best team, they did get to play in a quote-unquote BCS bowl game that if that were this year, it would be a playoff game.
True.
That year, it was like the number one BCS game outside of championship. And right. they beat the Oklahoma Sooners. So
yes, they did.
And
they have a blue field, which is just kind of cool.
And they have a blue field. Guys, thank you so much for listening to another episode of SportsBall. Will we see you next week? I hope so.
Why wouldn't we?
We will. We will see you next week. All of me.
You've been listening to SportsBall with Mike Maharrey and Alan Mosley. You can follow us on Facebook and leave comments, suggestions. Just go to @SportsBall Podcast. That's @SportsBall Podcast on Facebook. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.